to Cooking with Class. I'm your host, Stacy Tennant. We've got a great show for you today, so let's get started. I'd love to introduce to you our guest chef today, Chef Jeff Troyola of the Carriage Club in the Plaza, right?
Yes, just off the Plaza.
Just off the Plaza. How long have you been there?
5 years.
5 years.
I moved from Chicago for that position, and May was 5 years.
5 years, all right. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Now you supervise, well, you're the executive chef
Yes.
at the club, and you supervise apprentices through the culinary program here at Johnson County.
Yes, absolutely.
How's that working out for you?
It's fantastic. We have 3 current apprentices. I've had 2 graduate since I've been at the club, and it's a great program.
Yeah.
And I've had some tremendous luck with the apprenticeship.
Good. Glad to hear it. All right, well, let's get started. What are you making for us today?
I'm making a Parisienne gnocchi, and a Parisienne gnocchi is completely different than a potato gnocchi that most people are associated with.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you, what is a gnocchi?
A gnocchi is a dumpling.
A dumpling.
And
okay.
I think most people are familiar with a dumpling that's made from potato, which is originally a German type of gnocchi.
Right.
That's, I think, mostly associated with Italian cooking, but it originally started as a German dumpling. What we're making is a French gnocchi, which is a pâte à choux-based dough. Pâte à choux is what eclairs, cream puffs are made of, except we're going to make a savory dumpling from that.
Okay.
And the idea I want you to get is that there's a lot of flexibility in what you can do with this dumpling. It can be made ahead, it can be flavored in many different ways. And once you get the technique for making the pâte à choux dough, which is the dumpling dough, it's very, very simple.
Okay.
So we're going to get started. What I have in this pan so far is simply 1.5 cups of water, 5 ounces of butter. You bring that to a boil.
Okay, now is that water salted at all, or is the butter salted, or? Oh.
Now it's salted.
There it is.
1 teaspoon of kosher salt or sea salt. And basically you bring this to a boil. To that you will add 2 cups of sifted all-purpose flour.
Okay.
The idea behind this is you add the flour and you cook it. You'll see it comes away from the bottom of the pan, and you want to get a floury smell, and you want to cook some of the moisture out before you begin to incorporate the eggs. You have to incorporate the eggs one at a time for this particular style of gnocchi, otherwise you will not incorporate enough air into it.
Okay, so you said you're cooking out the water?
You're cooking out some of the moisture in this dough,
okay,
so that if you were making a cream puff, it would expand and leave the hollow center.
And you just do that by boiling the water once the flour's in
Yeah.
there? Okay.
Once the butter has melted and the water is boiling, you add the flour all at once and continue to stir. And you'll see it all come together. Use a wooden spoon for this, is to not scrape the pan too much.
Okay.
And you can see it all come together in a mass.
Oh, yeah. Now we're cooking.
But the most important part of this is to cook this out now. And it should cook for approximately 2 to 3 minutes, and you'll see a skin start to form on the bottom of the pan, and you'll get a real pronounced flour smell as the flour cooks.
Mm-hmm. Now, is the flour going to change color at all when
No,
you're
it won't.
cooking
You
this?
won't
No.
cook it that much because there's
Okay.
still plenty of moisture
So
in there.
don't cook it that much.
But you can start to see how the flour is sticking to the pan.
Oh, yeah.
That's what you want.
Okay.
So again, this is a pâte à choux dough based. If you were making eclairs or cream puffs, there more than likely wouldn't be the salt. You can incorporate some sugar into it. But for our recipe, it's going to be a savory application.
Savory application. And what do you mean by savory?
Savory as opposed to sweet.
Okay.
Most, other than to make these gnocchi, or a gougere, a cheese hors d'oeuvre, this dough is most commonly associated with sweets.
Okay.
So you can see how there's a film on the bottom of the pan.
Oh, yeah. Light dusting.
We'll add that to the mixer.
Just right out of the pan. Scare you?
No.
No? You don't get scared easily?
Not anymore. For this, you want to run it for a couple of minutes to release some of the steam and let some of the heat out before you start to incorporate the eggs.
Okay. So you want to work with a cooler, like cool
A little
room
bit. You want to get
temperature
a little bit of that steam off of there.
dough? Okay.
And then the key to this dough is to incorporate the eggs one at a time.
Okay.
As you add the eggs, it will slap around and looks like the dough is broken. Until it comes back together, you can't add another egg. Otherwise, the dough will not come back together.
Okay.
Start on low speed. I'm going to let a little bit more of that heat dissipate. Well, that's going. All I have here is some lightly salted water. This is what we're going to use to poach the gnocchi in.
And the temperature for poaching is 160, is that right?
Yes.
Is that roughly
Well,
the temperature?
when you poach the gnocchi, you want to have it just below boiling. So
Okay.
180 to 200, not a rapid boil for the gnocchi, just barely a simmer. You can see a lot of the steam has released, so we'll start to add our eggs. This recipe takes anywhere from 5 to 7 eggs.
And how do you know how many eggs to use?
I'll show you the consistency when it's
Okay.
done. But you see how it looked like it's separated
Yeah.
right when you added the initial egg?
So
And
you
now
wanna
it's starting
wait,
to come back
right.
together. See, every time you add an egg, it separates. And this is just the pâte à choux base. Today we're going to add 2 types of cheese. We're going to add a Gruyere cheese and a Parmesan. You could add any type of herbs. We might add a touch of truffle oil today. Sometimes we put mustard in it for a little extra flavoring, but the base is unlimited as far as what you can do.
Right. So it's a really creative dish.
Right, so we have 2 eggs in there now. That's a third. Normally this takes 6 eggs. Turn up the speed a little bit after the first 3 eggs have been added. You see, that's the 4th egg. It's come together. It should be a very smooth.
It's definitely a rich golden color
That's the
too.
5th egg. And after the eggs are incorporated, we'll add some cheese.
Okay. Now, of this recipe you're making, how much does it make?
This will make about 80 to 100 small dumplings.
Okay. This is a good appetizer.
That's another wonderful thing about these gnocchi. They're a great side dish for beef, chicken, wild game,
Right.
depending on how it's flavored. I'm going to show you a couple appetizer applications today.
Okay.
A nice gnocchi tossed with summer vegetables, and then one with a roasted tomato sauce with pancetta.
Okay.
More of a classic. This gnocchi can be sautéed, pan-fried, frozen very well.
So not only different variations, but different cooking methods that you can
Absolutely,
use too. Okay.
absolutely. You can, after they're poached, you can put them in a casserole dish, do a blue cheese cream sauce, and bake them in the casserole. The way we use them mostly at the club is how I'll show you
So
today.
you
where
prepare
they're-
these where you work.
Absolutely. You can see the smooth, creamy consistency of that. That's how a pâte à choux dough should look. To this, we'll add some grated Gruyere cheese,
Just a handful. It
some
doesn't
grated
really matter.
Parmesan. No, there's a lot of flexibility with this. Some fresh cut chives, some chopped Italian parsley, and a couple shavings of fresh nutmeg.
Okay, and what does a nutmeg do?
Nutmeg just gives it a little bit of a spicy tone, a subtle spice. And you can tell fresh compared to the
Yeah,
little bit goes a long way, but it adds just a nice little touch to it.
right.
Blend that in. Our water is barely at a simmer. And that's it.
All right.
The quickest way, I'll show you the restaurant way to make the dumplings.
Okay, the
is,
fancy
is
way.
with a pastry bag. Otherwise, you can form them into quenelles with a spoon. You can drop them off a spoon. They're not as obviously as uniform looking.
Right. So it's a nice thick consistency.
Exactly, you can see the...
Yeah. It smells good.
It's very creamy. Put that into a pastry bag with a, it has a straight tip, not a star tip. And then we'll poach these.
Okay, so you're piping them into the salted water.
Right.
And how long are you going to leave them in there for?
They'll sink at first, and then they'll float, and after they float, 2 or 3 minutes.
Okay, so we have sinkers and floaters.
Depending on how you are going to use them later, you can take them off a little bit sooner, because if they're not completely cooked, they're going to be cooked again.
Oh.
So you just hold them over the water and cut them off.
So they're just little guys. They're bite-sized pieces.
Right.
But you can do them in any shape you'd like, right?
Right. This is a classic gnocchi shape and size.
Okay.
You can see they're already, some of them are already starting to float.
Yeah.
Don't do more than about 15 or 20 at a time.
So you can overcook these.
You can, and they get, the reason you keep the water at a slightly more gentle boil is so they don't get tough. They should be very light and airy.
Okay.
So just move these around a little bit. When you take them out, you can shock them in water, in ice water, to stop the cooking. I don't do that. I'd rather take them off a little bit sooner, put them on a platter, and then chill them down that way so they don't have an opportunity to absorb more water.
Right.
So you can see how they all came to the surface.
Oh, yeah.
They're still a little bit raw in the middle, but they're very light.
So they should be soft when they're done.
They should. They should. Yeah. The dough looks heavy, but if it's made properly, the dumpling comes out very light.
Right.
I don't know if you want to...
Am I allowed to? Oh, yeah. I think I just squished it.
Oh, that's okay. So at this point, I would take them out. They might be a hair undercooked, but because we're going to saute them again, that's fine.
Right.
We'll make a few more. At this point, you would put them in the refrigerator to cool them. Or from this state, you can put them on sheet pans and freeze them. And then once they're individually frozen, you can put them in baggies and save them.
Now, what can you do with all the leftover dough? Like, if you don't want to serve all this dough that you've made, you can put it in the freezer.
Well, I would make the dumplings. The dumplings will hold better than the dough itself.
Okay.
So I would go ahead and cook them all, even if you're not going to use the dumplings.
Right. Good to know.
Let those go a little bit longer.
Okay.
These are some that were made yesterday. They get a little bit denser as they sit.
Right.
So to reconstitute these, we can drop them in the water a little bit, or we're just going to saute them in a non-stick pan, and
Okay.
you'll see them lighten up right away. We're going to make 2 appetizer dishes with these gnocchi. One is going to be a gnocchi with light summer vegetables and brown butter sauce.
And what's the other dish?
Is going to be more of a classic dish. It's a roasted tomato sauce with pancetta.
Okay.
So we're done with that. It's best to do the gnocchi, cook them separately, regardless of what you're going to incorporate them with. So I'm going to do my summer vegetables separate, and then I'm going to cook the gnocchi separate.
Okay, and why do you want to do that?
Then the gnocchi are able to brown uniformly, and that's what you want to get a little texture on the outside, and then they stay creamy on the inside. So I'm going to start with 2 Teflon pans. Put a little bit of truffle oil.
Now, can you use butter or
Absolutely.
olive
I'm
oil?
going to put a little bit of butter in there. Olive oil would probably be the most popular to use.
Right.
Add some gnocchi to that and let those start cooking. Then to this other pan, I'm going to add a touch of butter. Then we have some zucchini, some summer squash, yellow squash.
Mm-hmm. There we go. Look at you, multitasking. That's your job, right?
Yeah, it is. It's one of the keys. Eventually, they'll both be tossed together. Add a little bit more butter to the gnocchi and turn up the heat. A little kosher salt. I'm not going to cook these down too much because they will be tossed with the gnocchi. You don't want to move the gnocchi around too much either because you want them to get a little brown on one side.
See, if you would have told me that when I go home and make it, I would have been stirring it around constantly.
You can see they're starting to get, you know, they're not as fragile as they seem. You want to get a nice brown on the outside. Add my squash to that. Then I'm going to make a little bit of brown butter in this pan. This I'm going to add some Niçoise olives that have been halved, some grape tomatoes, and a little bit of chiffonade sage. And all chiffonade is sage, very, very finely sliced.
Right. Now, why did you choose sage to season your dish? What flavor does that add?
It adds much a more earthy flavor to the dish, and I think that complements the olives and tomatoes very well. Now for the brown butter, get that nutty flavor. Squeeze a lemon.
Get the seeds out.
Yeah, put a little bit more butter in here, stop the cooking. Finish that with some chopped parsley, some chives.
So this sauce is just going to add like a richness.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
So we plate up our gnocchi.
Now, is this an Italian dish or what? Where?
This style of gnocchi is originally a French dish. This is a French style of gnocchi. Drizzle the parsley brown butter
Beautiful.
over and around that. And these are some micro herbs that we get from a local farmer. Garnish it with a little bit of that.
Look at that.
And that's a nice summer appetizer, even though gnocchi are perceived as heavy. This is not a heavy dish at all. It's a great home dish, great restaurant dish, because it can be made in advance. Absolutely. Everything's made in advance except the last-minute cooking. Another thing you can do with these gnocchi are a more classical dish. This is a roasted tomato sauce with pancetta in it, which is a Italian bacon that's cured but not smoked. So I'm going to start off with a touch of butter for the gnocchi. Saute my gnocchi again.
And with sauteing, you want a hot pan, right?
You do. You absolutely do. And as you mentioned earlier, olive oil would be a great medium to saute it in. The butter adds some nice flavor to the gnocchi.
Mm-hmm.
And all this sauce is fresh tomatoes, onions, garlic, cooked down with the pancetta. The pancetta is rendered first, and the grease is removed. And then the fresh tomatoes are added to that, and then lightly hit with a immersion blender.
Okay. And do you let it sit for a while so all the flavors fuse together? Or
yes.
You can just, okay.
Yeah. So you can see we started with a hotter pan. They browned very quickly.
So don't walk away.
That's right. And this, I'm going to incorporate the sauce right with the gnocchi. You can heat the sauce and serve the gnocchi on a bed of the sauce. You can put this sauce in a casserole dish, put the gnocchi over the top, top it with mozzarella cheese, and bake it in the oven. So you can do that ahead if you wanted. Tremendous amount of flexibility with this type of gnocchi. So I'm just going to start with a cold sauce, heat the gnocchi in it.
And while he's doing that, I just want to remind all of our viewers out there, stop by our website, www.jccc.edu. There, you can get episodes of our cooking show, Cooking with Class. You can also pick up recipes. So stop by, check us out. Watch me for 150 minutes.
Finish that with a little grated Parmesan cheese. Little chopped Italian parsley.
Beautiful.
Then you have another, more of a classic gnocchi dish, and a light summer gnocchi dish.
Okay, so that's all you got for us, right?
That's it.
Well, awesome. Thanks, Chef, so much for
My
stopping
pleasure.
by. You're great. You're fun. You're exciting.
Yeah, thanks.
And you're charming,
I don't know
right?
about that.
All right, well, thanks for stopping by. Tune in next time. And from all of us, have a great day.
Thank you.